Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. And we have again another powerful session by MVP David Abiola. The last time he was with us, it was also another interesting topic he had for us. And now I think he's the most vocal fabric and evangelist. Microsoft needs to give you a new recognition for this fabric because you generate more content than anybody else I know, and it's an honor to have you here today. So the
Thank you.
topic is exploring Microsoft Fabric Unified Analytics Platform. And we
Okay.
don't have any better person to use to show us all these, especially those of us coming from a traditional data analysis background. We've got the right person who understands our background and also can show us how to demystify these things. So we are fortunate to have him. And this session is brought to you by your BizEdge and MHS Analytics. Your BizEdge is a trading and consulting firm based out of Nigeria. We provide Excel, Power BI, SQL, financial modeling training. So if you need any training or consulting needs, reach out to us. And then I'm going to share this free resource. It's a mixture of free and paid resource platform that we have. So in case you can find some value from some things from us without needing to pay. And then MHS Analytics, our Canadian entity, we do same thing as what you already know us doing your BizEdge, but we focus on the North American market and already deliver value for some big clients here in North America. Okay, so now to the main aspect of today's session. Our he's our presenter, our guest. Our guest speaker today is David Abiola. He's an MVP. He's got, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years now that he's been in the MVP program, and he's a senior business intelligence analyst and a data engineer. He's got over 7 years uh, professional experience doing this data. He kind of works across all of the data uh, processes, like a full stack data engineer. That's what they would call data person. So he's done the data engineering part, he does the analysis, data analysis, data warehouse, data cleaning, and he's knowledgeable on a lot of tools. So I'm going to quickly hand over to him so that he has the time he needs to take us through what he has prepared. And I'd say it's an honor once again to have you, David. Please, over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, my big brother. I call you a big brother because you are like a pace setter for most of the modern MVPs in Nigeria and, of course, in Africa as a continent. You open the floodgate for us. So thank you so much for having me. And it's my pleasure to join you on this platform this evening. So again, my name is Abiola David, and I'm an Excel person generally. And of course, I've got an interest in this amazing Microsoft Fabric, which was announced in the month of May last year by Microsoft CEO. Is an amazing platform, which I believe that most of us in the world of data, maybe you're coming from Excel, maybe you're from Power BI, even SQL, you can actually take advantage of this new unified platform that can do a whole lot of things. And I also believe that for as many people that are looking into careers in the world of data engineering or business intelligence or even data analytics, this is an opportunity to even dive into this amazing new platform. So just a quick more information about me. Of course, I'm an Excel MVP just 4 times. And of course, my area of specialization is Excel. And of course, I've got a C# Corner MVP on a C# Corner website where I share my content primarily on Microsoft Fabric and Power BI. And of course, I've got a master's in big data and business intelligence from the University of Greenwich, based in London. And of course, I've delivered, engagement speaking in the local and international conferences. Currently in the UK, I lecture at a university. And of course, I do trainings for the big organizations, at least some of the big ones in London and outside London. So the focus of today's session is going to be on the unified Microsoft Fabric platform. Just like there are so many experiences or workload in Microsoft Fabric. So we're going to be going through some of them in today's presentation, let's just go to the agenda. So we're going to be looking at basically how we can get the Microsoft Fabric 60 days free trials. Just like, Microsoft actually makes it possible for data enthusiasts, data engineers, even data analysts to have free access to 60 days of trials, to try all kind of experiences on Fabric. So we're going to be looking at just a little bit on how we can get started on that. And then we're going to consider, what is Fabric? And then we dive into the data factory experience. Then we'll talk about the data engineering experience, the Lakehouse medallion architecture, and how we can integrate Notebook with Lakehouse. And then we move on to the Synapse data warehouse, which I love so much. And then we're going to be talking about how we can access data in the Synapse data warehouse artifacts in the SQL Server Management Studio. And then we move on to real-time analytics. And then we talk about some data science, workspace security, OneLake, and then I just talked about briefly on the DP 600 Fabric engineer exam. Actually, I've taken the examination. I was part of the people that took the beta exam. I took the exam about 3 weeks ago, and we're still expecting the result to roll in. So probably if you are actually looking at being certified or becoming certified as a Fabric engineer, I'm going to probably give you some of the area you need to focus on, having taken the examination, so that I can actually be best prepared to face the exam. So now I'm going to be also looking at the practical aspect, just like some of you know me, I'm the kind of person, I don't really, talk too much, showing much of slide. I, believe so much in the practical aspects, the demo aspects. So let's get started. Now, I'm going to come to this slide. Now, basically, you can actually get, for example, if you don't have an office or maybe school or work email, Microsoft actually allows you to create an account that ends with at Outlook, which can actually sign up, go on the signup.live.com. So just create an account or email that ends with at outlook.com. And then you can go ahead and create the developer account. And maybe I'm going to make this link or this slide available maybe later on. So you can go through this link and create a developer account. And after you create a developer account, for example, you can create something like Abiola at test.onmicrosoft.com. Now, just like most of the MVPs, or if not all, we have tenants that we can easily create users or even resource group that we can use to, maybe work on the Power BI or even the Microsoft Fabric. So you can easily, as an individual, create a developer account such as this, which you can use to start the Microsoft Fabric 60 days free trial. Now, the 60 days is not going to end 60 days exactly, because I've discovered that I've been using this stuff for more than almost 7 months. So the 60 days just keep on rolling and rolling in my case. And I believe the same thing applies to all users all over the world. So just have enough time to play around, see how the Fabric works, and then you can make any choice to dive into a career in that respect. So after you create developer account, then you can proceed to app.powerbi.com, and then you're going to log in with the developer account. You created something like this, and then you're going to go to the admin portal, and then you need to search or turn on the Microsoft Fabric, and then you're going to have it exactly. Now, let me just quickly talk about this aspect. Now, let me come to my browser. Now, basically, this is the Microsoft Fabric welcome page. So this is the landing page. So you can see all the experiences. For example, we have the Power BI, and of course, we have the data factory. Now, this is new stuff, a data activator that allows you to set triggers and alerts to automate actions within your organization data. And then we have this brand new industry solution, which I've not explored. And then we have the Synapse engineering, data science, data warehouse, and real-time analytics. So let's say you actually, once you create your developer account, you can actually sign in into the app.powerbi.com, and then you're going to click on this icon at the bottom left-hand corner, and then you can see all the experiences. So you can click on this Fabric, and they're going to be in this landing page. Now, by default, the Fabric is not enabled or turned on in the admin portal. So you can easily come to this gear icon at the top here, and then let me just move this a little bit, and they can see all kind of options like the preferences, and they can see the resource and extension, and then under the governance and insights, you can click on the admin portal. who's going to open the portal where you can turn on the Microsoft Fabric. So basically, you're going to see the Fabric at the top like this. Okay, so this is a data activator. Okay, this is fine by default. Let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, now you're going to see something that allows you to turn on the Fabric in this environment. So just go ahead and turn it on, and then you are in the Microsoft Fabric, and then you can begin to play around with the experiences. Let me go to the slide and let's move on. So now let's look, what is Fabric basically? Now Fabric is a cloud-based, just like we have the Azure, we have the Amazon Web Service, we have the Snowflake, we have the other things like the cloud service. So this is a cloud service and everything is hosted on the web, and it offers various services and experiences for different analytical scenarios, such as data engineering, data science, real-time analytics, and business intelligence. It's an all-in-one platform. So it has everything that we need. I mean, we have the, for the data science guys, we have the Fabric notebook. Of course, we have the ML Flow and so many other stuffs. So this is an amazing platform that you can learn a whole lot, from data warehousing to data engineering to data factory, real-time analytics, and then the Power BI. So it's an all-in-one package, and it's an amazing platform that is really useful for a modern business, whether you're a small business or a large business. You can easily have access to the Fabric and then save costs and then get a whole lot from this platform. And I'm going to go to the next slide. Now let's talk about the data factory. Now data factory is one of the experiences or one of the workload in the Microsoft Fabric Unified Platform, and it allows us to move data from one data source to another data source. I mean, from one data source to another location. So we can perform things like using the ETL, we can extract data, transform data, and load using the Power Query in the Fabric, which is known as Data Flow Gen 2. And of course, you can even use what's called the data pipelines to move data at scale, which allows you to automate processes, clean, transform, enrich, and of course, you can even schedule and automate data movement without any intervention. So let me go to the next. Now we're going to be looking at some of this in the demo part. So let's talk about the Synapse data engineering. As some of us know that have play around with the Fabric, it's a powerful component that empowers data engineers basically to work with big data analytics. So if you have quite a large data, maybe a voluminous data, the data engineering platform allows you to easily leverage on the platform and be able to work seamlessly without much struggle. And of course, you can even use the Apache Spark for large-scale data transformation and processing. Now, in the Synapse data engineering platform, the Fabric engineers or end users can build out what is called a lakehouse, and even a lakehouse architecture that combine the best of data lakes and data warehouse together. And one of the benefits of using the data engineering is that you can actually move or work with data that is quite large, and there's not going to be a problem with the platform. So of course, you can even use one lake logical data mesh and granular control. And of course, it supports efficiency and seamless integration with other Fabric experiences. And these are some of the benefits of working with data engineering platform. And still on the data engineering platform, we have what's called the medallion architecture. When you look at this picture here, we have three layers. We have the bronze, the silver, and then the gold medallion models or architecture. For example, when you create a lake house, you can easily ingest or you can sync data from maybe a workspace or even externally from Azure data lake storage, or even from Amazon Web Service. I'm going to cover the Amazon Web Service practically in today's session. So you can ingest data into the bronze layer. Now, when you ingest or get data into the bronze layer, the data is considered as invalidated. So it's not validated, just you can get a raw data, maybe a structured, semi-structured, or even unstructured data into the bronze layer. Now, for the silver layer, this is an environment whereby the data in the bronze layer is validated and enriched for other tasks. And for the gold layer, we can easily use the data to perform aggregations or calculations or even business intelligence solution. Now, when you get data into the bronze layer, the data is known as delta tables. I'm going to show us an example of or how we can differentiate a delta table in the Lakehouse artifact of the data engineering platform. So you can even integrate the notebook, Fabric notebook, just like we have the Google Colab or other platform like the Jupyter Notebook. We can easily use the notebook to interact, to even write data from the notebook into the Delta Lake or data tables in the Lakehouse. So this works seamlessly. And let me go to the next slide. And then we have one of the one I love so much, one of the platform, the experiences, the data warehouse. Just like, we have in the SQL Server Management Studio, we can easily create, data warehouse in the databases. And the same thing actually, occurs in the data warehouse of the Microsoft Fabric. So it's a fully managed SaaS or software as a service solution that simplifies data warehouse setup and maintenance. It offers enhanced scalability, leading to resource efficiency, and of course, it can easily save costs because everything is really, less expensive. And data can be ingested from different relational database management system. You can get data from SQL Server, from Oracle SQL, from Postgres SQL, from MySQL, from Teradata, and so many other RDBMS. In addition, data can be ingested by creating a table and using the insert statement within the data warehouse. And of course, you can easily access the Power Query Online, that is the data flow gen tool. And of course, we have the data pipeline within the warehouse. Now, data can be queried using the query window in the data warehouse experience. So we can easily, just like we do in SSMS, let's want to actually create or you want to write SQL, you're going to come to the new query window here, and then you can go ahead and specify the name of the database, okay? And then go ahead and write a query. So the same thing applies in the data warehouse experience of Fabric. So you can create query data in the SQL query window. And so you can even visualize your data using the new visual window, just like if you want to create reports using the native Power BI visuals and so on. That is really possible in the data warehouse. Now, to build a report using multiple tables in a warehouse, it is important to establish relationship in the workspace model. Now, I'm going to show all this in the demo aspect, and then let me move to the next. And of course, you can even access your data in the warehouse in the SQL Server using what is called a string connection. I'm going to show all that in the demo part. And then we have the Synapse Real-Time Analytics, which is also a fully managed big data analytics platform that simplifies data ingestion, and it democratizes data for organizations and businesses. Now, it allows Fabric engineers or users to capture, transform, and route real-time events to various destinations. Users can also query data from any source in any format except SLXX extension without the need to build complex data models or scripts using the Custo query language. So I'm going to be showing a little bit of the real-time analytics, how we can create database and create table, ingest data into the table, and then write some field KQL query. Now, we have the SQL query and then we have the KQL. So some of us might be new to this platform. So I'm just going to demo that a little bit in this presentation. And then we have the data science platform or the experience, which allows data scientists to use the machine learning to enrich data and gain predictive insights. You can build machine learning models in the Synapse data science experience of the Fabric. And of course, we can work with data that is stored in the one lake. Now, every data in the Microsoft platform is stored in one lake, which is synonymous to OneDrive that will store data in the cloud service in M365. So you can even access data from Power BI and other sources. And of course, you can use tools such as Apache Spark, Python, Scala, SQL, R, Machine Learning Flow, Synapse ML, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to be talking about also the workspace security. Now, one of the things or one of the important aspects of the Fabric security and governance is workspace security. So I'm going to be touching on how we can grant access to some items or some artifacts in a workspace and the kind of privileges or permission we can grant to different users. I'm going to be doing all that practically in this presentation. So let me move to the next slide. So basically, I've talked about this. Now, OneLake is a single unified platform where all the data in the fabric can be managed. So we can easily have all the data in one location without having to move from one place to another within the fabric. And then this is an example of a one lake. So when you open, let's say you open a Power BI experience, at the left-hand panel here, you can see one lake data hub, and they're going to see all the workspaces within your fabric account, and they can see all the items and then the artifacts. So this is an example of what's called a one lake. And of course, you can even get data from one lake from Power BI desktop for analysis. So this is an amazing interconnectivity between the Power BI desktop and the Microsoft Fabric. For instance, let's say I want to get or perform some analytics or data modeling in the Power BI desktop. I can easily do that by getting data from either one lake, such as the lake house, warehouse, or the KQL, and then get the data into the Power BI desktop, perform your analysis, and then you move on. So this is an amazing stuff. Now let me quickly start the demonstration with getting data in the Power BI desktop from the data hub, or that is one lake. So I'm going to open an instance of Power BI desktop, and then I can. Okay, I'm waiting for this to come up. Now, if you have questions, you can drop it in the chat, and then we're going to take the questions after the end of the presentation. So I'm going to open a Power BI instance, and then I can easily click on the one lake data hub. Now, this actually allows me to connect to data from the Power BI semantic models, the data mart, or from the Fabric, lake houses, warehouses, and KQL databases, all within the Microsoft Fabric platform. So let's say I want to get data from lake houses. Just double click on that. So lake houses simply means if you have multiple lake house within your workspace or in your fabric, you can easily get that kind of data. For example, we can get, let's say I want to get this kind of data. This is a one lake icon. So let's say I want to actually get this data. I can just go ahead and double click. Now, before I do that, when you actually click on getting data from one lake, warehouses, or even KQL databases, you're going to see the name of the item, and you're going to see the name of the owner, and then the last time it was refreshed. And particularly, you're going to see the location where it is stored. And of course, you can see whether there's an endorsement or any sensitivity label attached. For example, I can actually get data that is endorsed. Now, endorsement is one of the stuff I actually, blogged about recently, how we can certify data or how we can promote items, not data, items within our workspaces. So you can click on this endorse in your organization, and if you have any data that is endorsed, you can easily connect to that data, and you can even get from the other items. So I want to get data from this semantic data. I can go ahead and double click, and then wait for the Power BI desktop to establish connection to that particular item. And I'm waiting for that to deploy. So, right, let's see. Okay, I think it's done. Okay, there we go. So I can see this table icon. Anyway, I don't have anything that contains. So I can see this unstructured data table icon. So if I have some data in that particular table, I'm going to see all of them. Now, this creates what's called direct querying. Now, direct querying simply means the data will not be loaded into the Power BI desktop. For instance, when you look at the left-hand panel, you can see the table view is missing. So we can only see the report view and the model or the relationship view. So we can't see the table view because this is just a direct query, just to connect to the data without loading the data or the table physically into the Power BI desktop. So that's basically how we can get data from one lake data hub. And let me go on. Okay, so now let's start with the demo part. So I'm going to go to my, okay, I'm going to come to my workspaces, and let me just create. Now, basically, for you to actually create any items, we must at least have a workspace that's existing or a brand new workspace to create any items or artifacts. So just go ahead and click on this workspaces, as we all know, and then click on new workspace. And then this is going to prompt us to give name for the workspace. So I'm going to call this one Power BI office hour demo. Okay, and then you can give description to your workspace. And of course, you can see this is actually available. So there is no same workspace with the same name. So this is available, and then you can see description, and then you can easily assign. Let me just move this a little bit. You can come to the advanced, and then you can even specify the list of contacts in this workspace. And I'm going to be using the trial version of the Fabric. So once you're done, you're happy, go ahead and click on apply, and then the workspace will be created with nothing to display. So you can see there is nothing here yet. Now, first, I want to show you how we can perform data cleaning and transformation in this first demo. Now I'm going to come to my C drive. I've got some data here. Let me come to my C drive. Okay, in my C drive, I've got this report for cleaning and transformation. I'm going to actually open this start file. So double click on that. And then let's see the data we're going to work with. Now, in this case, I've got this report. This data is basically a report. So we can see, for instance, in column A, I've got the product / the payment type, and I can see the list of the payment type at the top. And then I've got the total sales for the products by payment type. And then in column I, I've got the totals at the row levels, and then the totals at the column level. And then in cell A2, I've got a year. And in this case, in cell B2, I've got the year that is 2015. Now, I'm actually going to get this data into the data factory and then clean this data. And I'm going to come to the same folder. Okay, I'm going to come here. Now, I'm going to use this file as the base file to clean or to automate the cleaning of all these files in this folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this into the data factory. So let's go to the workspace we just created. So I can easily come at the bottom here and choose the data factory experience. And this actually opens the page. So we can see the current workspace is Power BI Office our demo. And there we can easily use the data flow gen tool, which is the same thing as Power Query Online. So this allows us to prepare, clean, transform our data for downstream analytics. And of course, we can even use the data pipeline and use some data or some activities in the pipeline. So I'm going to start off with this data flow gen tool. So I'm going to click on that and then wait for maybe some couple of seconds. So, okay, it's deploying. So I'm going to see by default data flow 1. Okay, so this is going to be the default name, and it's a good practice to always rename your default. So let's just call it data sales report. Okay, oops. So I'm going to click on it again. So select sales report cleaning. Okay, so just click enter to commit, and then we can easily get data from Excel workbook, from SQL Server. I'm going to cover this one later, even from comma separated value or text file, or even pipe. And of course, we can import data from data flows. So I actually want to get data from Excel. So I'm going to click on this. And then I have options to either specify the file path or the URL if the data is in my SharePoint, or I can even come to the upload and browse through the location of the file. So I want to come to my C drive, and I want to come to the report for cleaning and transformation, double click on that. So I want to access this start file, double click on that, and then the data will be loaded into my SharePoint, one SharePoint automatically, and then I can see. So you can see this is uploaded successfully. I can see the size of the file. And then for the connection, this is picked up automatically, my tenant name, and then my.sharepoint.com. And then at the bottom right, I can go ahead and click on next. So when I click on next, the data will be visible in the get data window, which I can specify. So I want to just click on the, okay, I can go ahead and click on the table or the report. I want to choose the report anyway. Click on the report, and I can see the preview of the data. So you can see there are a lot of cleaning and transformation required in this data, which I'm going to focus on. So go ahead and click on create, and that's going to ingest data into the Power Query Online. Okay, so there we go. So in this case, the data has been ingested into the Power Query Online, and then we want to actually transform the data. So now, first and foremost, you can see we have column 1, 2, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we'll do is to go ahead and transpose this data. So from this column 1, I'm going to come to the transform tab, and I want to choose transpose. So when I transpose the data, so I can see we have the year, the month, and then the product payments, Apple, and so on and so forth. So now, basically, before I do that, I'm going to go back. I can come to this query settings here, and then we have the apply step, just like so it can always go back or go forward. So what I'm going to do is, this is not going to work. I'm going to actually cancel this step. So you can always go back to previous steps. So I'm going to even clear this change type. And then we want to actually start from the navigation one. So in the navigation one, so I can say the non-data type specified. So I can go on and transpose again. So transpose. Okay, I think this is much better to what we had initially. So the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and fill the year and the month downward. So I can select by holding down the shift key, the month and the year. I can right click, and then I want to choose fill down. So fill down. Okay, so that's done. Now I can see at the bottom here in row number 8, we've got the total. So I'm going to come to the filter icon here and uncheck. Let me move this aside. Uncheck the total, and then click OK. All right, and then I can scroll to the right. I can see all the list of the product, the laptop, tablet, router, headphones, and so on and so forth. I'm going to scroll to the right, and then in column number 24 and 25, I can see the total and the null. So I don't need these two columns. So holding down the shift key, I click on the column 25, right click, and then I want to get rid of that. So remove columns. Okay, so that's done. I can see that recorded in the apply step. The first thing we did is to transpose, fill down, then we filter out 2 columns, and then we remove the 2 columns. Okay, so I filter the rows and then remove 2 columns. So I'm going to scroll back to the left. Now, next, I want to actually promote. You can see in row number 1, I've got the year, the month, product, and so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and use the first row as the headers. Now, if I probably fail to use the first row as an header, this is not going to actually give me the cleaning that I intend. So go ahead and choose use first row as headers. Okay, again, the step is recorded, nice and easy. That's awesome. So I can go ahead and unpivot all other columns, this smartphone, laptop, tablet, and so on and so forth. I'm going to come here. I'm going to select these 3 columns, the year, the month, and then the product / payment type. So I'm going to right click and choose unpivot all the columns. And there we go. So you can see the data has been transformed to a proper granular format. So I can see in column A, or in the first column, the year, the month, the product, the payment type, the product, and then the sales amount. So I can go ahead and just tidy up this name. I'm going to clean this up. So this is going to be the payment type column. So just go ahead and rename. And I'm going to rename this as the products column. So click enter. Okay, and then for the last column, the numerical column, I'm going to call this one sales or sales amount. Anyone is fine, okay? And of course, we can always specify the data type. So these are text. So I'm going to make this to be a currency data type. Okay, so that's nice. So we're going to use, as I've said, the first file is going to be the base to clean all these single files here, like these single files in this folder, this report 2016 to 2023. So we actually want to clean all this up. Let me just open one of them. So this is one of the files in the folder. So I'm going to use the 2015 to perform the automation, that is to invoke a custom function to clean that up. So I'm going to go back to the fabric. So I'm going to close this down. Okay, so I'm going to actually double click or right click on this and duplicate the result. Now I'm not going to rename this. It's not really needed at this stage. So I'm going to go ahead and get the data from the folder. Now in Excel and Power BI, it is straightforward, absolutely easy to get data from the folder. Just point to the folder, path, and then you get this. But the same thing is not, or the same thing doesn't apply in Fabric. I'm going to duplicate this tab. So duplicate. I want to show you something. Let me move this around. Okay, let me move this. Okay. Okay, let me just move this a little bit. All right. Okay, I'm going to come here and let me just wait for the Power Query to open again. So I'm going to close this Power Query for now. Just go ahead and choose yes. So because I still have it open here anyway. So I'm going to, oh, sorry, I just click on stop sharing. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to come to this particular folder. Okay, so we can see sales report cleaning. This is the data flow gen 2. Now I'm going to come to this settings here. And then at the bottom, I want to come to manage. Let me move this a little bit. Manage connections and gateways. So I'm still going to talk about the gateways later on. Now, for you to get any data from folder on maybe within your C drive, we must first and foremost set up the connection to that location. So how do we do that? So we do that in the settings here, and then under the resource and extension, click on manage connections and gateways. Now you can see all the connections that I've used in recent time. I can see the connection type, the user, the status, whether it's online or offline. I can see the gateway cluster. So I want to click on this new button here. So when I click on the new, I can see I can get data from on-premises, that is on my local laptop, or even from virtual machine or from the cloud. So we want to actually get from on-premises. Now, in order to actually have this working, we must first and foremost install a data gateway. Now, the data gateway allows us to connect to all the data on premises. So how do we do that? You can come to this icon here. First, you have to download the data gateway. So basically, just click on data gateway. So once you click on that, you're going to download and then install. Let me show you how the data gateways look like. So I'm going to open this gateway. Okay, click on yes. So once you download this data gateway, let me just show you how. Okay, let me click on the link. Now, there are two types. We have the standard data gateway, and then we have the personal data gateway. So if you want to download, just go ahead and click on download the standard data gateway, which can be used not only by you, but even by other users within your Microsoft Fabric or users within your Microsoft Entra ID. So, but this is personal. Personal simply allows you only to use the data gateway. So just go ahead and click on the download the standard. So once you download, just go to your download and then double click and follow the installation. So basically, once you click on it, you have to specify some information like your email address that is associated with your developer account, and then you provide your password, and then that's basically how we can get the on-premises data gateway working. So I'm going to click on this sign in. So now you're going to get something like this. I'm going to type my email address, Abiola at exceljetconsult on Microsoft.com. So once you type in your developer account, click on next, and then you can always see the status of the gateway. Basically, this is going to ask you to sign in. So I'm going to just go ahead and sign in, and I think I'm going to need my authentication. Okay, this is fine. So you can see the data gateway ExcelJet iPhone gateway is online and ready to use. So this is basically how we can easily set up the data gateway, because it is really needed to get data from SQL Server specifically, and of course to establish connection. So I'm going to close this for now and then return back here. So once you have your data gateway up and running, you can come here, on-premises data gateways. You can actually install as many as you like, different ones, not the same. So this is the gateway installed. I can see the contact details. I can even specify more than one user status and so on and so forth. So let's come back to the folder. So once you have your gateway installed, click on this new, and then we can choose the on-premises and then specify the name of the gateway. So the gateway cluster name is really required. And then you can specify, let me just call this one get data from folder. Okay, so I'm actually just setting this one up again, and then it can specify the type. Now there are all kind of connection type in Fabric, so we can see all of them listed in alphabetical order. I can get from Active Directory and so on. I'm going to scroll down and look for the folder. So okay, this is the folder, click on it, and then I can specify the folder path. So I'm going to come to the folder path here. So this is basically the folder I'm going to specify. So just click in this environment, and then I'm going to Control C to copy, and then return to the online, and then Control V to paste. And I'm going to scroll down. For the authentication, we can specify by default, it only accepts Windows anyway. So I'm going to just keep, connection test, and then this is fine for the general privacy levels organization. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create and scroll up. So you can see create and created get data from folder. So this is very required in order to get folder into the fabric. So I'm going to scroll down. You can see, oh, there we go. So we have get data from folder. So I'm going to come back to the factory here, and then I can come to the home tab and click on get data. And then let me move this aside. I'm going to click on the more option at the bottom, and I'm going to browse for folder. So click on the folder, and then we need to specify the folder path again. So that's copied in memory. I can Control V to paste, and that picks up my get data folder connection automatically with the on-premises Excel Jet iPhone gateway picked up. So that is fine. I can go ahead and click on next, and then wait for the Power Query to establish connection to the folder. Now, this might take a while depending on your internet connection and so on. And there we go. This is basically how we can connect to folder. So we can see the preview of the content in the folder. So now I'm not going to combine because we have dirty data in each of the binary file. So I'm going to click on create, and then that's going to be loaded into the Power Query Online. So let me just wait for that to conclude. Now, I'm going to come back to this query I duplicated. Now, I'm going to actually use this to define a function that I can invoke to clean up this data. Okay, so I'm going to come here, and I can rename this. Let me just call it function. You can call it anything, function to clean data. Okay. All right, so just click enter. So having done that, I'm going to come to the View tab. In the View tab, I want to actually come to the Advanced Editor and modify the content. Now, basically, we have the let that defines or undo so many steps in the Power Query. So we can see all the steps. The first step is the source, getting the data from the Excel.workbook and so on. Now, in order to speed things up, I'm going to actually delete this part of this code. Now, sometimes it can be really awkward deleting some code if you don't probably know how to fix the code. So I'm going to actually move this down a little bit. After the equals, I'm going to come here, just move that a little bit. Now I'm going to define a function that I'm going to pass into this transpose table. That is table.transpose function. So I'm going to come here inside double quotes or open and closing brackets. I can call it anything. Let's just call it special function. Okay, and then I'm going to use the goto operator. Now the goto operator is the equal and greater than symbol, and then I'm going to come inside this box or this value, the navigation one for the table, the transpose, delete that, and I'm going to paste this special function and Control V. So there we go. So everything is good. That's the only thing I need to do. I can go ahead and click on OK. And let me see. Oh, there we go. So I have the function created, which I'm going to use to clean up all this file. So this is done and this is done. Now let's come back to this report 2016 to 2033. Now, first, just like if you have multiple extensions, maybe .pdf, .doc, .pbr, and so on and so forth, in the same folder, it is important to filter out the extension. But in this case, we have .xlsx extension, Excel workbook, and then we can see the date access, date modified, and so on. So basically, I want to get rid of everything excluding the content. So I'm going to come here, right click, and I want to remove all the columns. So I can click in a single of the cell. I can say the binary. So we have each of the file. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come to the Add Column tab, and then I want to create a custom column. Now, in the custom column, I don't really need to give a name for this, name. I can always call it get data from folder. So click on that. And then I want to come to the custom column formula. So since all the data are coming from Excel, so I'm going to actually use the Excel.workbook function. So this has to be capitalized, the first letter workbook, and then open the brackets. So I'm going to just pass the content, the binary, double click, and I'm going to move this aside and then go ahead and click on OK. So this is actually going to access all the tables within the binary file. So we can see the preview at the bottom here. So we can see the name, the data. Now this is where the data is originally stored, the item, kind, and so on. So I can click on this expandable icon, and then I can even specify or even bring out all the columns, but I specifically need the name and the data, and then click OK. Okay, there we go. So I can see the name. So again, you can apply filter to pick names that maybe that contains. So that is really easy to do. Now, when I click on this data and I can move this up a little bit. So these are the individual files, all right, in the folder. So I can just click on it and see the preview. So this is what we're going to use. We're going to use this function to clean up all the data from each of the tables and then combine them. So what I'm going to do next is go ahead and use the invoke custom function. So I'm going to come in the add column tab, click on the invoke custom function, and then I can say the function name, function to clean data. And then now this looks quite different from the Power Query in Excel and in Power BI. So this is actually a different, field or another experience in the data flow gen tool. That's one of the difference I observe. So for now, you can see we can enter any value. This doesn't work. Okay, before I do this, in order to make it easier for us to understand, I'm going to get rid of these two columns, the content and the name, right click and remove columns. So we are left with the data. So again, click on the invoke custom function. And then I want to select a query. So when I click on the select a query, okay, now let me come back here. Use a value in a column. So there we go. So we have to use a value in a column. And then we actually want to use the data because that's the column that contains all the data. So go ahead and click OK. And then we wait. Okay, there we go. So I can click on this. And this is the final solution. Amazing. So you can see when I just click on each of the file, I can see the preview. So the data has been cleansed properly using the function. So this is looking good. I can go ahead and check. Now, I don't need this again. I can right click and remove column. And then to combine, in other words, to append all the files, I can go ahead and choose this expandable icon. Now, if this is checked, use original column name as prefix. That has to be unchecked. I can see all the columns, the year, month, payment type, products, sales amount. Click OK. And there we go. So we have the data transform, and this is quite amazing. So I can go ahead and say all the year. I think we have, okay, 2016, 17, and so on and so forth. So the data has been cleansed, and at the same time, we append them, we stack them on top of each other, just like we do with the merge. And then I can go ahead and, okay, let me just rename this. Let me call this one, okay, cleanse, or let me just call it F transaction. Okay, and then go ahead and click enter. So now the next thing is to specify. Now, okay, before the next thing, now we don't actually want to take this report 2015 across. So I'm going to right click and choose enable, that is to disable the staging. In other words, this data will not be loaded into the workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and click and check this. And then we can specify. oh, I think there's a step that's missing, initially. But anyway, just go ahead and publish. So you can publish into your data, to your one lake, or I'm sorry, your lake house, or even your warehouse. But I think I actually missed that step. So just go ahead and publish, and then wait for the report to be published. And that's basically how we can perform the data cleaning in this scenario. And then once the data has been loaded into either your lake house or your warehouse, then you can begin to query the data. So that's basically how we can clean data in data flow Gen 2, in data factory. The same thing applies to the data science, the data engineering, and the data warehouse. So I'm going to move to the next stage. Let me go see the slide. Okay. All right. Okay. Now you can even get data from SQL Server. All right. So I'm going to come to my SQL Server now. Okay. Now this is my SQL Server. I can see my server name, and then I actually log in as the super account. Okay. So I'm going to come to my Fabric. So come at the bottom here, and then I'm going to come to, or basically, let's just create a warehouse. I'm going to come here and choose data warehouse. So I can click on this warehouse, and I can call it sample or demo warehouse. All right. And then click on create. So the data warehouse will be created, and then we can ingest data into the data warehouse. So I'm just waiting for that to be deployed, and then we'll move on. So if you have questions, you can just note your questions down, and then we can take the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so now we can see we have the schemas and then the security. So you can get data by writing a T-SQL code, create table, and then you use the insert. You can get data from data flow Gen 2, data pipeline, and of course, a sample data warehouse. So I'm going to actually get data again from new data flow Gen 2. So I'm going to click on that. And then I want to get data from SQL Server. So just go ahead and import data from SQL Server. And again, I'm going to specify my server name. Now, just like you can get to server name. Let me disconnect and click on connect. So database engine. Now, this is my server name. So I'm going to go back and type in Abiola David 01. And then I can specify the name for my database. So let me go back and connect. So I'm going to expand this databases, and then I can say I want to get data from sales data. So I can specify sales data. And of course, I have a connection established already, and I can go ahead and click on next. Excuse me. So wait for that to open, and there we go. So I can see the tables within the sales data database. And let's say I want to get this fact table. I can just go ahead and click on it, and then I can see the preview of the data, then go ahead and click on create. Okay, so again, if you want to perform any transformation, just go ahead and perform the transformation, and then we specify the data destination. So now the data destination has been picked up automatically in the warehouse. You can even click on this gear icon to be sure, click on next. Okay. And then we can specify the specific warehouse. So waiting for that to connect. Right. All right, just waiting. Okay, there we go. So you can see I've got the demo warehouse. I can double click. I can see the staging and the specific warehouse. Okay, so click on it and then click on next. So you can even rename your data, your table, if you want to. So in this stage, you can choose the destination settings. Now we have the column mapping. This is the source column names, and then the destination. So you can easily modify them, including the data types. So this is fine. Just go ahead and click on Save Settings. And then go ahead and publish now. Okay, so of course, this might take some few minutes depending on the volume of the data. So once that's done, you can go ahead. Let me just wait for that to conclude. So you can click on this ellipsis, and then you can even check the refresh history. So for now, you can see there is absolutely no refresh for now. This is the first stage to deploy the data from the data flow gen tool into the demo warehouse. So let me just wait for that to quickly conclude, and then we move on. Okay, so you can see data flow published successfully. So I can click on this ellipsis. I can see the refresh history. So this is still in progress anyway. So once it's fully ingested, we're going to see the green check mark as the status. So I'm just going to wait for this to conclude. While that is doing its job, again, we can click on this ellipsis and it can actually export the data into JavaScript object notation file. So this is totally possible. And then you can even click on the settings to see the settings of the particular data you're getting from the SSMS or from your SQL server. So let me just go back and then we'll wait for this to conclude. All right. Or if there's any question, we can take any questions for now as we wait for the deployment, the data to be ingested. If there's any questions.
Okay, I'm checking. So far, no questions.
Okay.
If you've got any question, this is an opportunity to raise your hand or put it in the chat.
Okay. So just waiting for this to. Anyway, okay, I think this is done. All right, yeah, it's fully. So once it is fully deployed or ingested into the warehouse, so everything's turns, the properties and everything becomes available. So click on the refresh and there we go, succeeded. So let's just move past. I'm going to close this and then I can come into now for in the workspace, we have different kind of artifacts and items. For example, we have the data flow gen tool, we have the staging, we have the workspace, the warehouse itself. You can see the type, the warehouse, the semantic model, and so on. So let's click on the warehouse. And there we go. So we can see the data is now in the warehouse. And then we can begin to query the data. So just waiting for the data to preview. Okay, just double click and let's wait. So basically to query the data, just go ahead and click on this new SQL query. And you can easily use this to visualize. You can even create reports or even author a new measure that you can use in the report. So let's say I want to just write a simple query. So I can, let me just select few rows, select top, maybe top 5, all records from, and then I can even drag the name of the table onto the SQL query window and then go ahead and click on run. And there we go. So the data has been successfully ingested into the data warehouse. I can go ahead and select and explore the data further. You can click on this explore, and that's going to open the native Power BI visuals that we use. But usually I don't really fancy this explore. I prefer to come to this drop down and use the visualized results, because with the visualized results, you can easily create different kind of visuals, but the explore only allows to create a single visual based on what I discovered. So click on the visualized results. Now for that to work, it is important to select the query. So if I do not select the query and I click on this visualize result, this is going to actually throw this error, unable to visualize results. To visualize, select the text of one select statement in your query. So you have to select the query and then click on this drop down and then visualize your results. And then you can see this window, the query statement, click on continue. And then we can go ahead and build a report using that particular query. So let's say I want to create total sales account manager by, let me see. Okay, I've got the, okay, let me just look for a numerical. Okay, let's say we want to see by order quantity. Okay, there we go. So you can create something like a table. You can go ahead and even transform or change it to another visual. Like, let's say you want to create donor chart, and there we go. So that's basically how to visualize your results. And then once you're done, click on save as, and then you can even save into the workspace or another workspace. It is totally fine. So you can choose any destination, and then you can rename the report. Let me just call it report demo. And then once you're happy, click on save. And then that's saved. So I can come back to that workspace. and then just go ahead and refresh. Let me just refresh, and then we should see the report within the workspace as an item. So I think it's still deploying that. While that is doing its job, okay, let me refresh one more time. Okay, I'm still waiting for that to come anyway. So that's basically how we can easily, query data in the data warehouse. Now, I said in the presentation, in the slide, I actually said that we can actually get data from or we can even query data from, I'm waiting for this to come up. We can query data in the SSMS by using connection string. Okay, still wait. Okay, so I can actually come to the data warehouse I created, demo warehouse, click on this ellipsis, and then I can copy the SQL connection string. So copy that. So I'm going to copy this, and then it's copied to the clipboard and close that. Now, this is my account. Okay, so I'm going to use the same account as my multi-factor authentication kind in the SQL Server Management Studio. I'm going to come to the SSMS. I'm going to disconnect my local or on-premise account. So disconnect, and then let's connect. So I'm going to, in the server name, paste the string. And then for the authentication kind, we're going to use the Azure Active Directory Universal with multi-factor authentication. And then I can specify the name of my account. I can even optionally ignore that and click on connect. Now, this is actually going to launch a URL that establishes connection to the account. So I'm going to select this account, Abiola, and so on. So click on that. So you can see authentication complete. You can return to application. Feel free to close the window. So go ahead and close the window. And then we can come back. Okay, this is where I am. Oh, the SSMS. And there we go. So I've been able to establish connection to the data in the data warehouse on Fabric, and which is super amazing. So I can go ahead and access all the databases. So I can see the demo, and let's click on, let's see the table. So I'm going to see the fact table. Okay, there we go. So again, I can go ahead and query. So let me just open a new query window, and then, okay, there we go. So this picked up the name of the database easily. So I can write, let's just write a simple select star from fact table, and then click on execute. And there we go. So we have the data executed, and then we can even write some complex, queries. Okay. So this is basically how we can connect to a data warehouse using an external tool. Now, SSMS is considered as an external tool, so we can easily use an external tool. And then you're going to see this icon here. So this icon tells you, hey, this is coming from Fabric data warehouse experience. So that's it. Now, I actually want to talk about how we can create lakehouse, and then how we can create shortcuts from external data source like the ADLS or Amazon Web Service S3 buckets. So let me go onto that quickly. I'm going to come to the browser. So I'm going to come to the workspace. Oops. All right, let me see. Okay, so I'm going to come at the bottom here and create a data. Just click on the data engineering, and then I want to create a lakehouse. So again, you can see we can easily access the notebook and the Spark job definition, the data pipeline. We can even import notebook from maybe Jupyter Notebook or even Google Colab. That's totally fine. So I'm going to call this one, let me just call it LH. All right, LH, and then click on create the lakehouse. Okay, so again, we can ingest data into the lakehouse using the Fabric notebook. We can use the upload method. We can use the data pipeline. We can even use shortcuts. Now, shortcut allows us to connect to data from internal or external sources without physically ingesting the data into the lakehouse. Okay, and it's the same thing like it's the same thing like direct query in Power BI desktop. So when we create a lakehouse, automatically the SQL analytics endpoint is created, and then after we ingest data, we can go ahead and query the data by just switching from the top here. You can switch to the SQL analytics endpoints. So now in this case, we have the tables and the files. Now, this actually brings the concept of the medallion architecture that I talked about earlier. Now, when you get raw data into a file, that's considered as being in a bronze layer. And then when we perform or when we structure the data, we validate the data, let's say in the notebook, that's the silver layer, and then we have the bronze layer where we can begin to perform some aggregations or calculation using the SQL endpoints. Now, basically, we have nothing in the lakehouse created. So we can actually create or get data using this ellipses, and then we can upload the files or folder from your local laptop. That is totally fine. But I actually want to focus on getting data externally from Amazon Web Service S3. So I actually just open my AWS account here. Now, basically, this is what's called AWS console. So I can see all the experiences or all the services that I've used. We have got the S3, the identity management, and so on, the RDS, relational database system, and so on. So I'm going to click on this S3. Now, the S3 is similar to Data Factory in Fabric, okay? So in the S3, there's something called buckets. Now, buckets is the logical container, just like Workspace, that we can store different kind of items, maybe images, pictures, audios, and so on and so forth. So in this case, I've got a bucket, and of course, the name of my bucket is Sales Data 007. So I can click on it, and then I can see in the next stage, the content in that sales data 007. Now, basically, I've got a folder which is named as sales AWS. So I can see the folder name, and then I can click on it. And of course, I can see all the items in that folder, which is, in this case, I've just got a sales.csv file. So I'm going to click on it. Now, when I click on it, I can see the properties, and of course, I can even verify the permissions, the version. Now, this is a different thing entirely. We can even come to the object queries, object actions, and then we can query the data, just like we are a SQL query, to perform select statements, but that's not the focus of this part. Now, I can see the properties such as the object name and so on and so forth. Now, I actually want to get this data from the sales.csv of the sales AWS folder from the S3 bucket. So I'm going to go back to the Fabric, and then I'm going to come here and, okay, so this is done. I'm going to use the same lakehouse. So just click on that LH. And I can see the fact table. Okay, the fact table. Okay, there's nothing here for now. Okay, so I can come back and, okay, let me close this so that we can be very sure of what's going on. Let me close this window, the demo. Okay, just wait. Oh, I think there's something wrong with my, let me just refresh the URL. Okay. No. Page. I think there's something, my system froze. Okay, let me just refresh. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. Let me just close all this for now. Close. Okay, I'm going to come back to the LH. Now, I want to actually open the lakehouse itself with the type lakehouse. So click on it. Okay, and then we wait. Okay, now I want to create a shortcut in form of a Parquet file. So I'm going to click on this ellipsis, and then I can choose new shortcut. So click on that. Now, internally get data or connect to data from lakehouses, warehouses, or even KQL. So I'm going to click on this for now. I can see we have all the types, the lakehouse, the warehouse. Even if you have KQL, you can always see. And of course, you can see your capacity region. I'm currently in the UK, so I'm currently in the UK South region, and then some other information. So I'm going to close this, but we actually want to get data externally. So choose the new shortcut, and then you can get data from the Amazon S3 or from the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 ADLS. But I want to get data from the Amazon S3 externally, and then just wait for the connection settings to pop up. Now, in the connection settings, we need to specify the URL. So I'm going to come here. Now, in this window, this is going to be the URL. So I'm going to copy this URL and then go back, and I'm going to paste here. Now, basically, this is not going to work because we only need the name of the buckets and the service, which is S3 in this case, and then the region that your service is deployed. Mine is deployed in the EU North 1, and then we have the .amazon aws.com. So I'm going to delete this portion of the URL. So delete, that's not really required. And then, okay, I'm going to actually bring this up. I'm going to edit. Now, the next thing is to specify the authentication kind. Now, for some of us that may probably have some knowledge of the AWS or the S3, there's something called the identity management. Let's just go back to the console. This is what I'm talking about. Let me duplicate. Okay, let me duplicate this and let me show you this what I'm talking about. So I'm going to, let me just go to the console. All right. Now there's a service called AIM. So when I click on this AIM, this allows us to create a security account within our AWS service. So this is called the Identity Access Management. Now, I've got a video on this specifically. Now, to get data from the bucket from the AWS S3, I've got to provide some credentials. So I've got the credentials here just for this training purpose. We need the access key ID and the secret access key. So I've got a separate video on how to go about setting up this, but because of time, I'm not going to be looking at how to create that. So let's go to the fabric. So for the authentication kind, we need to specify the access key. So for the access key ID, I'm going to come here and copy this ID, and then I'm going to paste Ctrl V. And then for the secret key, I'm going to copy this. Now, this is just specifically for this training. I'm going to delete these keys after this training, so it's not going to work. Ctrl V to paste, and then I can go ahead and click on next. And there we go. So the connection has been established to the S3, and then I can just give a name for the shortcut. Let's just call it demo data from AWS. Okay, and then we need to specify the folder name. Now, basically, to get data, the data must be stored in a folder, not in just the bucket. It must be in a folder. So I'm going to come back here, and then I can see this is the name of the folder. I'm going to go back. Okay, I'm going to go back to the bucket name. So this is the name of the folder, sales AWS. Now, this / is not part of it. So go back, and I'm going to call or type the name sales AWS, and then click on create. And then we wait for the shortcut to be created. And there we go. So we have the demo data from AWS. I can double click. So when I double click, there we go. I can see the sales data.csv, which is exactly what is contained in the folder. Okay, so I can click on it. So let's go back to the lake house. And now there we go. We have it in form of a package file. So to load this sales or the content into a table, I'm going to click on the ellipsis and then choose load to table. You can choose to load to an existing table if you have maybe a table, or you can choose a new table. So just choose the new table. In this case, I can call it anything. I'm going to retain the same sales name and then go ahead and load. So once that is loaded, I can, so just going to wait maybe under a few or less than 2 minutes. And then we can see the data loaded into, again, now we are actually not physically loading the data. This is what's called a shortcut. We can see this icon here. It is basically to connect to the data without loading. So we can see just an artificial value of the data, but we are not loading the original data. So we're going to wait for that to conclude. Okay, there we go. Successfully created sales data. Sales table. So now we can see the delta table with this icon. So I can double click and I can see all the columns. Okay, there we go. See, this is the data preview. And then we can go ahead and interact with data. We can switch from the lake house at the top right-hand corner to the SQL analytics endpoint. and then we can begin to query the data in the data view. Okay, so there we go. This is lovely. So just go ahead and query the data. Now, if you have multiple tables, and of course, you want to actually create new reports, it is important to come to the model view and establish the one-to-many relationship as we normally do in Power BI Desktop. And then you go ahead and create a new report. And then write your formulas, your DAX formula. You can create your measures here and then build your reports. So this is basically how we can easily connect. Let me go back to the lake house. So I'm gonna, okay. So this is basically how we can easily create a shortcut, all right, to an external data stored in another service, okay? So if there's any question you can ask. And I think, let me go to the final part. Okay, let me go to the slide, okay? So I think I've talked about this. So, and okay, let me just talk about this quickly and then we bring this to a close. Now, we can easily create data pipeline to get data from maybe sample data or even from any of the items or even from different workspaces. So I'm going to go back to my browser. So when I go back to the browser, and I'm going to come here to the lake house. Okay, or let me go back here. Okay, now I'm going to come to the same lake house that I created. I want to say this is the lake house. Okay, I can even get data and use the data pipeline. So I'm going to click on that. All right, and then we wait for the pipeline to come. So I'm going to call this demo pipeline and then click on create. Okay, so once the pipeline has been created, and go ahead and add or copy data, copy activity, or you can even specify other activities within the data pipeline. You can even specify parameters. We can create what's called dynamic content, which I'm going to show anyway in this next. So now this is actually going to show the copy data into the lake house. So you can actually choose any of the sample data, but because of time, let's just get this public holiday data. So I'm going to click on this and then choose next. Now having choose next, so we can specify the data source. So just wait for the preview of the data. Okay, just waiting for that. So this is the preview, and then we can go ahead and click on next. And then we can choose to create a new lake house if we want to dump or ingest in a new, or we can choose an existing lake house. So we actually want to dump in the LH existing lake house. So click on next. And then we can specify the root folder. It could be coming into tables directly in form of Delta tables, or you can load it as a file, but table is fine. So we can even choose the settings, either to load to a new table or an existing table. So let's load to a new table. We can give this a name, sample data for public holidays. Okay, so that's fine. And then we can see the column mapping, the source column name, the data types, and then the destination and so on and so forth. So this is fine. Go ahead and click on next. And then we can see the preview. So we're actually copying from the sample data set as the source, and then we are ingesting into the lakehouse named LH, and the name of the table is sample data for public holidays. And then we can even schedule transfer. Actually, you can specify the time to transfer or to ingest the data. That's fine. But I'm just going to click on save and run. And there we go. So it's saving, and then it's going to start running the data. Okay, so now that is going on. So we can see the pipeline run ID. We can see the activity status queued, and then just wait for some couple of maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes or less. And then the data will be ingested into the lake house. Okay. So that is in progress. So if there's any questions, we can take the questions. Okay. So if there's any, go on, please. Go on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
2 questions. One was from someone named Hem. It
Okay.
was mentioning, his question is, does the clean data published override the previous one? So that was when you were still on the data flow, concluding the data flow Gen 2 part.
Okay. So can you say the question again? Does the what? Let me get the question.
Okay. Does the cleaned data
Okay.
published override the previous one?
Oh, not at all, not at all. Now, when you get, okay, if I understand what you're talking about, you're talking about the sales for 2015, right?
Yeah, it
When
was
I was,
that
yeah,
period. That yeah.
okay, that period. Okay. Now, actually, I was not loading the root, the data I cleansed initially. I wasn't loading that. I actually just used that single Excel file. This is what I'm talking about. Let me come here quickly. So, okay. Actually, the first thing I did is to actually get this data into the Power Query online. So I'm actually not loading, I'm not loading this data into the data factory, okay, into the lake house or the warehouse. No, I'm not loading. I only just cleanse this data to be used to invoke the function I created to clean the files from the folder, this folder. So this data coming from here in the Power Query is what I use to claim this data. So let me go back to that question so that I can probably understand what I'm saying. Now, this has actually concluded, so succeeded. So let me go back, or let me just duplicate this. I'm going to come back and then, so this is what I'm talking about. Let me go back to the workspace. Okay, data flow. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, let me go back here. Okay. Okay, now in this case, I'm actually not loading. You can see this is italicized. This report 2015 is italicized. So I'm actually not load this. Of course, I didn't specify destination anyway. I could have actually chose the maybe lake house or a warehouse, but that's not the focus. But I'm actually not loading this report 2015 into the destination. If I'm to load, I'm actually just loading this or use this report to create a function, that I invoked to ultimately transform all the single Excel files from the folder. So that's the reason why I started with this start file. I just copy, let me go back here. Okay, basically this is what I did. I just copy one of the file. I actually copied this 2016 and paste here. Okay, it's the same content. So I actually just use this Excel file as a base to create a function that I invoked to ultimately transform all these single Excel files. So that's what I'm actually doing. So in the case of overwriting or not, since I'm not loading the report 2015 or 16 into, let's say, a lake house or warehouse, so the issue of overriding doesn't apply. However, if I'm actually loading this same, if I'm to load this same report into the warehouse or the lake house, it's not going to override, except I specify that, hey, override this file. But if I do not specify override, it's definitely going to, it's not going to overwrite. Everything will be deployed as a separate table. Okay, this is going to come into the lake house or warehouse as a separate table. This is also going to come as a separate table. Okay, so I'm actually not loading. So I hope that clarifies the questions. Hopefully. Okay, can we take the next questions?
So the next question,
Okay.
okay, so Temidayo is saying, hi David, awesome presentation. So he's asking, for heavy Azure and AWS users, how do you sell Fabric to them? How do you convince them of the convenience? Or let me read it the way he's written it. Awesome presentation. For heavy Azure AWS users, how do you sell Fabric or convenience? Or maybe you want to convince management or new organization to go for Fabric?
Okay. Now, thank you for the question. Now, Actually, I would have loved not to talk about the question, but let me just say in my own personal perspectives. Now, when Microsoft Fabric was announced by Microsoft CEO, it actually provides a lot of modern and new features that are built on top of Microsoft Azure. Okay, so at least most of what you can do in Fabric, you can do some of them in for example, we have the data factory in Microsoft Azure, and of course we have it also in the in Azure and in Fabric. Now, based on what I understand, the Fabric is less expensive. Fabric is less expensive compared to Azure. So at least in the area of minimizing cost, I can convince, for example, I had a training for an organization in at least north of England, and I was talking about this Fabric, they've never heard of it. And, when I was talking about it, they were so fascinated with the possibility of performing, data science, data modeling, using the lakehouse, creating lakehouse, warehouse, data activator, and so on and so forth. They were so, happy that, wow, all this contains everything that they need. So this actually brings together most of the modern cloud services into one. So in terms of area of costs, it is easy. It's cost, it saves some costs. And not only that, you can easily turn off your subscription. Okay, for example, let's say you subscribe to the first level, I think I've forgotten the name. So you can even turn off. You can actually, stop the CPU from running, the SKU from running. So if you're not actually going to perform any task, you still have your data maintained in the service without deleting. Now, as you know, if you do not have subscription on Microsoft Azure, within a certain period of time, all your content will be deleted from the service, isn't it? Yes, it's going to be deleted. But the same thing is not, that's not the same thing in Fabric. So you can still retain your data, and then you can even, for example, stop your subscription from running. And of course, it is really cheap to use. And of course, you have so many kind of experiences that you can play around with that are not available in the Microsoft Azure. That's just my own personal perspective to that questions. Okay, any other questions?
Someone's hand has been up, so I'm going to let him ask his question. His name is Siddharth.
Siddharth, okay.
So I've given you ability to speak if you want to unmute and ask. I know you've also typed the question, but since your hand was up, do you want to unmute, or should I read your question the way you have typed it?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Abiola and Mr. Michael. How are you doing today?
Good, and you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. So my question is, how do we set up the OLTP system? And does the raw data ingested to the SQL directly from the OLTP system? Let's just say if we are using IBM to set up OLTP system. And what's the difference between the data lake, data warehouse, and data mart?
Okay. Now, the difference between the data lake and let's just start with the lake house and the data warehouse. Now, in the data warehouse, you can easily, for instance, create a data for the. Okay, let's start with the lake house. Now, in lake house, you can query your data, but we can perform some. You can perform read operations like we do in the standard SQL, but in lake house, but in the warehouse, you have a lot of functionality. You can perform read, update, the CRUD operation. You can create, you can read, update, and even delete from your lake house, from your warehouse. And of course, you can perform things like creating security, like maybe row level security, column level security, data masking. Now, this functionality are not possible in the lakehouse, except if you use the notebook to invoke all the security measures. So in warehouse, you can easily, for example, perform the row level security if you don't want users from or unauthorized, let me use that word, unauthorized users to access some tables or some column of data. You can use dynamic masking. I think I have a video on that. You can perform row level security. I have a video on that also, and even column level security. So these are some of the possibility in the warehouse that are not possible in the standard lakehouse, except if you use the notebook, the Fabric notebook, to invoke that. Now, can you repeat the second questions? Let me get it. You talked about OLTP. Please, can you repeat the
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, sure. So, and what's the difference between data warehouse and data mart, and how do we set up the OLTP system? Does the OLTP system, let's just say I'm using, we get data from credit card transactions or, at a retail transaction.
Okay.
Does that get
Okay.
data? Does the OLTP data gets ingested directly to the SQL server, or do we have to manually, transform the, transfer the data from the OLCC repository to the SQL?
Now, I've actually not, worked on that or, play around with that. So I may not be able to give you a definite response to that. So I haven't tried that one out. So I want to be sure that everything I'm saying is what I've played around with and I've verified it, okay? So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to specifically give you a response on that, okay? Because I have not tried that. But what I understand, based on the documentations and information out there on Microsoft Learn and so on, you can easily get data from maybe online application, OLTP, OLAP or OLTP. So that's totally possible. Okay, but I've not really tried much of maybe getting data from the IBM, or I think you mentioned something like that. I've not really tried that, so I'm not going to be able to give you a definite response on that. Okay.
All right, got it.
All right.
And
Thank you.
what is the difference between a data warehouse and data mart?
Now, for the data warehouse, I've actually, talked about that. But for the data mart, I haven't really, played around with that also, to be frank, honestly.
Oh, okay,
But
all
I
right, all
understand
right.
that the
Right.
data warehouse you can actually get a voluminous, you can analyze data using the data warehouse. And of course, the data warehouse is scalable. So it doesn't matter how large or the size of the data, you can always work with them. And of course, you can even create what's called incremental load. In other words, if you have, let's say, 1 billion of record in a data warehouse, maybe externally, you can easily take a few part, let's say just 100,000 of records into the Fabric data warehouse from the external data source. And then you can set up the refresh. You can easily put in some mechanism in place to get the data ingested into the warehouse without further intervention. That's just what I've played with thus far in the data warehouse. But there are a lot of possibility anyway, and of course, there are still so many things that are yet to be unearthed on this Fabric platform as a whole. Okay.
All right.
So, any
All
other
right.
questions? Now,
Yeah,
okay.
that's all. That'll be all. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So in this case, we have been able to successfully ingest the data into the lake house. So I can go to the lake house and then verify. Okay, so there we go. So we have the sample data from public holidays. So we can go ahead and begin to query the data and so on and so forth. Now, on the final note, let me just talk about this. For example, you can also get data and use activity like the MS Teams or Outlook. In other words, you can get notifications sent to your Outlook or to maybe a Teams channel if maybe your data ingestion is successful or not. Let me quickly demonstrate this quickly because of time. So I'm going to come back. Okay, so I'm going to come to this A to Z of warehouse and let me search for, I've got so many items here. So I'm going to come to this. Okay, let me search. Let me scroll down. I'm looking for a warehouse. So I'm going to come to this WH data lake warehouse. All right, let me just open that one up. And then I think I actually choose the SQL. And okay, it's coming up. Okay, so just waiting for this to come. I'm going to click or choose new data pipeline. So I'm going to click on data pipeline. Let me just call it one. That's fine because of time, to save time. Okay. So just waiting for the pipeline canvas to come up. Now, okay, let me move this aside. I'm going to scroll down. Let's say I want to get data from my lake house. Just click on the lake house. And let me see. Okay, I've got a data in the WH lake house. So click on that. And then I'm going to choose next. So, okay, let me just load to a table. And oops. Oh no, this is not what I'm. Okay, this is not what I'm trying to. Okay, let me just use the one I used not too long. Let me go back and go to this LH. Okay, in the LH, all right. So I'm going to go back to I'm looking for that. There, okay, go back to this workspace. Let me quickly use this. Now again, so let's actually want to create a MS Teams or even Outlook notification. I can come to this activity and then I can see at the top right hand corner, I can choose the Outlook 365 or even MS Teams. So I'm going to just drag or click on it, and that's going to be added into the activity pipeline, the canvas. So I'm going to actually, upon the successful ingestion, I'm going to actually do this again. I want to create a connection to this Office 365. So let me check this of copy data. I'm going to come to the source. Now in the source, I can see this is actually coming from the public holidays in form of packet file. And for the destination, okay, let me choose another desk. Let me actually get this into a KQL. And then, okay, let me use the warehouse. Okay, let's actually want to ingest or sync into the demo WH. I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to do is, this is done. I'm going to come to the Office 365 and then specify the settings. I can change this name. Let me just call it demo and come to the settings. Now, in the settings, I can, of course, I need to sign in into my account, the same account I used to log in here. So click on the sign in, and then we wait for the sign in window to come up. Okay, it's coming up. Okay, so, okay, I'm going to pick the account, the same account, all right? And then I'm going to allow access. So created the connection successfully, that's fine. I'm going to move this up a little bit, and then I can send a notification to, I'm going to send it to one of the accounts I created in the name of my son. I've got this account created named Enoch at So I'm going to come back here and send to that person Enoch at Exceljet Consult 111.microsoft.com. Okay, this is fine. Then we can come here. I can come to the subject. Okay, let me just call this one test. And I'm going to scroll down. And then we can, in the body of the message, add dynamic content. Let me just say, hey, Enoch. Okay. Okay, just checking this pipeline around pipeline with pipeline ID. Okay, so I can add the pipeline ID. I can add the weight as a form of dynamic content, and then I'm going to scroll down. So click outside that. So that's done. I can even come to the advanced and specify if I want to send to multiple people, you know, the CC and then the basis and so on and so forth. But this is really not needed. So this is set up. Upon the successful ingestion, a notification will be sent to that email I specified, this email. Okay. So once I'm done, I can come to the home and then click on validate. So to be sure that everything is, you know, going fine. Table is required for copy activity. Okay. So let me go back. I need to specify a table. So, okay, let me come to the source. Okay, oops, excuse me. Okay, preview or browse. Okay, let me just get this data. Click on next. All right. I'm trying to quickly just round up. So let's just wait for this to come up. All right, next. Okay, so I can come here, just click outside, okay, let me just wait for this to come up. Okay. Okay, wait. Okay, so I'm going to close this. All right. So let me just go ahead and run and save and run. Let's see. Okay, it's still telling me table validation. Okay, I think it's actually because I've actually ingested the data. That's why it's complaining about. Okay, let me go to the workspaces. Okay, let me pick. Oh no, I don't have anything here. Let me see if I have any table. Okay, loading the table. Okay, let me just load this table quickly and then run. Let me see. Oh, this is actually complaining of table. Oh, okay, let me use, sorry, pardon, sorry about the stuff. Let me just go back and close all this anyway. Let me close all this. Okay, discard. Okay, let me come here. All right, let me create a new. I actually don't want to create a new lake house. I'm just trying to see which one can I. Okay, now I don't know why the stuff is, really. Okay, let me see where I can use this pipeline. All right, okay, copy activity. Okay, before I copy, let me just cancel this. I'm going to come to the activity and click on this. All right, so I think this should work. And then copy. I'm going to come back here. Oh. Pardon me, let me. Oh. Sorry, let me just. I'm just trying to use a table quickly to send a notification. Copy. Again, let me just copy the same, use this data, and then next. Okay, let me check the lake house. Next. Okay. Next. And then let me just leave the name and then click on next. So this is actually going to ingest the data, but I'm just trying to, I actually want to create an activity quickly on that. Oh, it's actually going to ingest. Let me click on the activities and then the Outlook. So connect, come to the source, the destination, the table. Okay, this is the table name. All right. So let me sign in again quickly. All right, sign in, allow access. All right, just waiting for this to come up. Okay, so I'm going to type in the email address again. At exceljet consult111.microsoft.com. Okay, let me just add the dynamic contents here. So ID, all right, and then, okay, it has been actually ingested. So let me come back to the home. Okay, valid. So run and save. Oh, wow, this complaining about validation of model fail. Wow. Anyway, I don't know what's going on. I'm actually just trying to create, a Outlook notification, but I don't know why it's, showing an error. But anyway, let me just go to the last part and then we round up the presentation. Now, let me just talk about the workspace settings. Now, in the workspace, we have all kinds of items or artifacts. We have things like report, semantic model, data pipeline, and so on and so forth. Now, as an admin, you might want to give access to a specific user or a resource group within your tenant. So how do you do that? I can come to this ellipsis and then click on the manage access. And then we can add people or a resource group into a workspace. Now, if I had, for instance, this name, Enoch Abiola, let me just wait for that. Click on this. I can specify any of these four access. I can make them to be an admin or viewer, contributor, or member. Let me just make it a viewer. So viewer simply means say this person is going to actually be able to view the content in the A to Z of warehouse. So I'm going to click on add, and then there we go. It's added. So I can click on this to go back, and then I'm going to open the account of that person up, refresh at the top here, just refresh. And then when I come to the bottom here, I can click on, let's see, Power BI. And then when I click on the workspaces, I can see this person have access to all the items in the workspace. So this is the account of the person I actually added. So now as an admin, you need to know whether the person you want to give access to for all the content in a workspace do require to have access to that content or not. So let's say I actually want to take out this privileges or the permission. I can come back to the admin account. I can come to the same ellipsis, manage access. I can come, I can see this person is able to view the content, and then I can get rid of the access. So once that's removed, I can go back to the other account. Now, so this might actually take about 5 minutes or even less for the permission to be removed. So I'm going to refresh maybe 3 times. This should, okay, there we go. So you can see, sorry, you don't have access to that group. We have taken you to your personal workspace. So that's basically how we can grant access to all the content in a workspace and how we can easily remove. Now, you might actually want to grant access to a particular item, not all the content. So I'm going to come back to the admin account. Let's say I want to grant access to this, this report. So I can click on this ellipsis, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on manage permissions. So when I click on manage permissions, then, okay, no, let me go back. Let me use a lake house, for instance. Okay, let me use a notebook. I'm going to click on this ellipsis and choose manage permission. I can even click on this share icon anyway. When I click on this share icon, I can specify the name of the person I want to share with. So specify the name. Once I specify the name, just go ahead and send. So once you send, the link will be sent to them via their Outlook email. So once they get the link, they can easily open the link and then access the Fabric notebook and then perform whatever they intend to do. So this is basically all that I have for this presentation. Any other questions before we bring the class to a close, the session to a close? Any other questions?
I'm checking. No other questions.
All right. So this is all. Okay, and now, okay, before I go quickly, I think now for the Fabric engineer, I think I'm going to encourage us to, take the examination if you're looking into a career as a certified Fabric engineer. Now, the examination is quite tough. I've taken the examination and we are still expecting the results. Of course, this is a beta exam, so it takes a long time before the results are rolled out. But if you want to actually take the examination, you need to focus on the area of Power BI. It is very important. Of course, you can always go through the knowledge areas that is being measured. So you need to focus on the Power BI, and of course, you need to focus on the lake house and specifically the warehouse. So I think those environments are very key to pass the examination. And of course, in the examination, you have other options. You can use, I think Microsoft Learn is enabled, is available in the exam, though I didn't use it, but you can always use Microsoft Learn if you want to use it just to help you. So, but that's the way it is anyway. So that's all I have for this presentation. All right, over to you, Mr. Mike.
Thank you very much. It's like I'm not surprised that you had a lot planned for us. So thank you very much. And
thank you
to everyone who has joined, I think some people had to leave because they had probably clashing engagement, but the session is being recorded, so I know they will be able to watch the recording. But to everybody who stayed to the end, thank you. To those who asked questions, thank you. And I will say thank you especially to our special guest, MVP David Abiola. Thank you for
you so much for having
me. Very in-depth content you've shared with us today. I know it's a lot for people to soak in, but like I always tell people, being aware of something is better than not even being aware at all.
Of course.
So I'm sure over the time that they begin to interact with Fabric and internalize some of what you've mentioned, they will find valuable that at least someone has shown them that this thing is there, these stuffs are possible. And this is how the platform looks like. So thank you once again. And
okay, thank you.
Yeah, have a wonderful week ahead.
And you too. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful week.
So thanks. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye. Yeah, bye-bye. All right, bye.